This the Black Powder Podcast. Kick up your feet, lean on your armrest, and get your mind blessed on this conquest. Hold a grip like a 12 gauge, let this moment kick. Black people moving and having some gun ownership. I carry weight, not to keep the camera safe. It's thinking about you, my kids and my parents' faces. The big topics, they don't wanna involve us. Think we're novice, but now we're moving hard with revolvers. This the Black Powder Podcast, let's get it started.
Primers hit, the powder is lit. It's time to get on target. Welcome to another episode of the Black Powder Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Yosuke Fett. And just a general reminder of your marching orders and why we have created the Black Powder Podcast. The main mission is to change the social view of black society and firearms. How do we do that? Glad you asked. We talk, walk, read, write, and think about it to find a better solution for a brighter future for the proper protection of black people. Join us through education, practice, and safety as we take down the stigma of black people and guns, one discussion at a time. You know what? I've got a small clip on the podcast now where I'm showing my daughter my handgun, my Canic, right? TP9 SFX. And I sat down and I talked with her. I said, do you know what this can do? She said, it can hurt people and they're for monsters. And I told her, they're not for monsters, but they can hurt people. If you ever see somebody with this, what do? She said, you run away. I said, you also tell an adult. She said, okay, what do? You run away and you tell an adult because they can hurt people.
Right.
There's going to be a time where you have to explain these things to our children in order to provide a more positive image in black society. Because if they realize that they don't need to be around these people who could have that potential Will Smith energy, they can find and hopefully make better decisions as far as who they hang around.
Right.
And it has to start at a young age, because I'm extremely glad that my daughter at the age of 4, about to be 5, knows that if she sees anybody utilizing anything that looks black and scary, because default color for handguns is that black. Or default color for those guns in general is that black. She knows to walk away. She even knows what my shotgun looks like. My shotgun has got the doorbuster on it, and it's got 2 bayonet spikes on the front. It's a tactical shotgun. It's a KSG, and I can hold 23 shells in that sucker.
Wow.
She knows to leave it alone. I always and that's what it boils down to, is reinforcement. She knows not to touch it. But I think ultimately what causes the situation is the curiosity, because if we keep our children away from certain things, it's going to continue to build that curiosity up until they're like, I wonder what it does.
Right.
And then that's when they find out, unfortunately, that it does this. And that's the last thing you'll ever do. So, right. But I plan on doing a show on that soon, very soon. But I just, as far as this Will Smith slap, it's going to be consequences for us, because even though we were talking about what black media would look like for black people, unfortunately, our counterpoints watch all media. And when actually, even if they don't watch black media, what the media portrays of us in their own sphere, if you will, is usually the negative.
Not usually, always a negative.
There's small, and I'm not accounting for the anecdotal. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's I say usually the negative because there are. Let me account for some of the anecdotal, but there's not enough anecdotal stuff that can make up for all the negative that the media portrays. Because if there is anything good, it gets overlooked because it's piled on top of all this negative shit.
Name something? I mean, it's for me, the amount of content that's put out there with black people. I can't name a lot of content that's out there positive about black people. When it comes to the shows that's out there, the reality shows. I hate the reality shows because that's never nothing positive for us. You can have the richest people or the people that's doing you think are successful, and you get these reality shows and it's producing nothing but negative content of black people fighting and arguing, can't get along. That's negative. When it comes to the news, you know, just regular everyday your local news. Most of the stories and they reporting crime is black people. Like we're the only ones committed crime in that city today. You know, no matter what news article you find news, it's gonna be black people. Even when you was talking earlier saying about reparations and stuff, and you say Ukrainians, even in the media lately, when it comes to when you had the people at the border. Remember last year, the year before, you had two scenarios. When coming from the South, you had the Colombians or the people coming from the South American country, when they had all the kids and they separated the family and the kids. They stopped those people at the border and they put them in cages and stuff. And then last year, you had the Haitians come up through the borders and everything. They put them on the bridge, won't let them in, and they stopped them. But last week, Ukrainians came to the border, and I'm not trying to knock Ukrainian people, but you need to give equal treatment to all. And for the U.S. government to say, well, you're gonna let the Ukrainians in, and you're gonna exclude some of the exceptions that we normally use to let people into the country. The other two groups of people were refugees as well. So what make this group of refugees different from the other group of refugees?
Well, the problem isn't equality. The problem is equity, because
that's what I'm saying.
Well,
you're gonna be equal to. You're gonna give equal consideration to all, not just one group of people.
Yeah, but in order to do that, there's gonna have to be some sort of sacrifice for the main group of people who can make that sacrifice. It's just problem is they refuse to make it. And on top of that, if you look over at Ukraine, between the border of Poland and Ukraine, the Ukrainian Border Patrol refused to let black people go into Poland. From what I heard, from what I understood, Poland was completely welcoming and accepting of all people coming from Ukraine. They were accepting of all people coming from Ukraine. The problem was getting from Ukraine to Poland thanks to the Ukrainian Border Patrol.
But you know, Ukrainians, stories I've read, articles I've read, you know, of people, of black people going over there and experiencing that in Ukraine is that they don't like black people over there either. The Ukrainians are, they're not as accepting of black people as you would think they are. But based on some journalists that's been over there who've lived there, moved there to support it. I mean, moved there to kind of, you know, before the war. And like this one article I read where the journalist went over there, he said he was trying to move into an apartment. And it was so hard for him to get an apartment because he was black. He already had one interview set up. He went there. When he got there, when he walked in, the owner was like, no, I can't rent it to you. I'm not going to rent it to you. And the person that he had been using to set it up, all his appointments and appearances to get the apartments, the different ones, the person told him, so I can't get you in an apartment because once the owner found out you're black, they refuse to rent it to you.
Yeah. That sounds about right, but you also have to keep in mind that that's where some of the racial groups are trained at. You know, over in Europe. Not saying Ukraine specifically, but the racial terrorist groups that we see, Europe, European.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense. I mean, what do you expect? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's not a European country that you can't move to. I mean, my girlfriend, like I said before, one of the proudest things she's ever done is move to the Netherlands by herself. She's got family over there, don't get me wrong, you know, and I think she had to discover family, one family member at a time, but nonetheless, the fact that she was able to do that, you know, it's anecdotal, but it worked for her, but that was the Netherlands. You know, there's, just like here, just going to be some states where you can't live because you go out far enough, there's going to be people that don't like the complexion of your skin. And that's unfortunately something that we will always have to keep in mind whenever we are trying to move either the United States or move to another country.
Yeah.
Even Africa isn't exactly the easiest place to move to as far as African American black people, because we don't belong to a tribe. Over there, it's more tribal based.
Yeah.
Over here, you know, it's somewhat, and it's funny, I was having a conversation with a brother earlier. Shout out to Howard, you know, I told him about the podcast. I told him I was doing this, but shout out to him. Because he even said over here, it's somewhat similar, just on a different scale. Because, you know, when you go to Georgia, you got people that say, I'm from College Park. But then it gets even deeper because it's like, I'm from College Park, Godby Road. And then it gets even deeper because you're like, I'm from College Park, Godby Road, Riverside 474 or whatever. You know, it just gets to the point where there's some sort of tribalistic setting to where if you're not part of this neighborhood, you're not going to fit in too easy. So it's almost the same thing. I
opened up my season talking to a young lady from Africa, Veronica, and we was talking about tribalism in Africa. She's from Uganda, and she broke down how tribalism works over there, where you got, and we kind of did that comparison on the show where we talked about what it's like living in the United States and compared it to tribalism and how tribalism set up over there. So you're right. They break it down to I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and such, and I'm, a tribe in Atlanta is different than a tribe in Macon versus a tribe in Valdosta versus a tribe in College Park. So yeah, you hit it right on the head.
Yeah, and then the tribe from Macon, Atlanta, College Park is just considered a tribe from Georgia who will have a difficult time trying to mix in with the tribe from New York and so on and so forth. So it's
right.
That's how it is. But
so do you think that this thing with Will and Chris Rock is a huge negative impact on black men? How you think it impacts us, like
globally? Because unfortunately, like I said, we as black society are judged by our people who are involved in sports, who are involved in some type of media or music, models, actresses. Basically, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but basically nobody other than the entertainment sector. So to take a quote from I think it's Black in Japan, the channel on YouTube. He helped out somebody who was extremely drunk one night, and the man kept saying, no. He said, no, you need some help. I got you. Took care of the man. When the man finally made it back to his hotel, he said, I thought that you would have treated me completely different considering that you're black. And the host of the show asked him why he thought that. And the Japanese man said, because the white man told me that black people act like this. And that's just through word. He said a white, not the white man, like the man, but he said a white man told him that black people are like this, and that's just through word of mouth. This is on a global scale. It's already bad enough that certain societies, like say for example, let's say Japan isn't going to really portray black lifestyle due to the fact that they're Japanese, they're mainly Japan, they're mainly going to deal with the Japanese lifestyle. It's very rare that you'll see a black person over there. But if they were to cut on the television and see a well-established black man slapping another well-established black man, then they could easily think no matter how much or how far they get in life, these black people will always be feral, they'll always be vicious, they will always seek to not only hurt themselves but other people. As they say, a picture says 1,000 words, and Will spoke volumes whenever he slapped Chris, and that is what the world sees, and that is what the world is going to compare us to. So now we will have to work harder to try and overcome that image of what's to be expected. Like, oh, you're black, it's okay, we know you're violent. Hell, even white society fears us because that's the image they created for us. unfortunately.
And yeah, I get that.
Oh, and I forgot.
Go ahead.
Well, okay, I forgot because if you look at some of the quotes that Will said, love will make you do crazy things. And he said that Denzel went and comforted Will. Let's think about that. Denzel went and comforted Will. Told him at the highest moment, be careful. That's when the devil comes for you. He told Will that. He said, Denzel basically said, fuck Chris Rock. Let me go comfort somebody who is of more on the established level like me. Chris Rock is not important, basically. Nobody came to Chris Rock. Nobody came to talk to Chris Rock during that incident. And Chris Rock was the victim. Chris Rock was just a basic everyday man who was trying to do his job to pay his bills and had to deal with a Karen mentality. And just because the devil you got to realize the devil you know is not always the most comfortable. But also the devil you don't know is about the same. Like I said earlier, it comes back to the fact that there's untamed devils that are not being fought with and controlled in the Smith family. And them supposedly being the pinnacle of black society, quote unquote, if you will, is basically saying that this is what we have to offer to society. This is what society can expect from black people because they are the portrayers of what we, quote unquote, are as black society. Unfortunately, because that's what other cultures are going to see on TV. Nobody's going to go and watch, whatever black oriented news channel we had. I know the last one that tried to come out was the Black News Channel, but that went right out the window despite the fact that they had millions behind it because it was a leaning agenda. It wasn't controlled by black people. It was a leaning agenda. If you do want to listen to some black media, unfortunately you have to go to YouTube, and they get shadow banned on multiple occasions.
Or you can go to a podcast like this.
Yes, you can go to a podcast like this. You're right. Or you go to a podcast like yours. It's just, you have to look outside of what society is portraying to you. Because in all social spheres, we are dealing with people who want things easily catered to them. So if I just want to know what, and this isn't true, but nonetheless, if I were to go with the social norms, if I want to know what an Asian person can do, I can go turn on TikTok and watch a bunch of people cook noodles or something and say, oh, they like noodles. Or I can go turn on YouTube and a bunch of Kung Fu flicks will come up and I'll say, oh, okay, they know Kung Fu. Or I can go watch, the emotional damage guy and say, all Asians have emotional damage. But is that the truth? No. It comes from having one-on-one conversations. And it's funny because the last person of Asian ethnicity I talked to was, it was funny, the whole situation. Black guy going to a 5-11 store talking to an Asian store owner. And we both agreed that the Stop Asian Hate thing, number one, nobody, as far as I know, nobody wants to go out there and spend time trying to find some random Asian person just to hate on them and vice versa for black people. And number two, we both agreed it was a media shift in narrative because ever since January the 6th, they're like, oh shit, we gotta find a scapegoat. We gotta find somebody else to blame.
Right.
So
everything when it comes to media has an agenda. I was going back to when you said, and I agree, when you said when Will went on stage and slapped Chris, that's what everybody in the world saw, and they can take that as that's how black people act.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to say that because I was reading some of the comments on I forgot what it was, TMZ, I think,
TMZ,
talking about it,
probably. Mm-hmm.
and people making comments like, I don't agree with that type of violence on TV. My child was watching and they're asking me if that's how black people are. But I'm like, those are really stupid comments because number one, I'm sure your child watch much more violence on TV than Will snapping Chris Rock. Okay, I'm sure they do. I'm sure you don't censor them for any of that stuff. They're putting all kind of stuff in these cartoons nowadays, and I'm sure you're not watching and sitting and watching cartoons with your kid 100% of the time, because if you did, you'd have saw what I saw, and I turned it off when I watched cartoon with my daughter. Okay, I'm not going to point out any specific shows, but the content on the cartoon, what I thought was not necessary to be in a cartoon for kids, focused at kids. But there have been many things that have happened on TV, incidents on TV that, you know, can portray an image of a group of people. Black people is being painted the negative, violent people image. But we're not that negative, violent people like you say. However, the people that's painting that picture, like you said earlier in the podcast where we was talking about the person that's doing the accusations are more the ones that are actually one doing. Who's painting this negative image of violence of us? We sit here on CNN and all the other news networks every day and watch images of what's going on in Ukraine, the bombings in Ukraine. I've seen images of people getting blown up. I've seen images of people, dead bodies, which they actually showed on TV, on the news outlet. But you're telling me the most violent thing you've seen was Chris getting slapped by Will, and you don't have a problem with the image of these people being killed or blown up or dead bodies, on real dead bodies. Look what happened with Katrina. They showed dead people on TV when Katrina happened. I mean, why make this the news article of the month if it's really not? You know, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just
selective violence.
Yeah.
Because when you censor people to the point where seeing somebody get blown up by a landmine and, you know, having their vitals exposed and their limbs blown off, it's just common everyday thing. And you can thank most parents for not taking control of the media that their children consume, because you've got young kids that go out and play Call of Duty and they can easily see somewhat similar to that. And the parents let them. It's like, okay, as long as you don't do nothing crazy, fine. But it's selective violence because now all of a sudden a celebrity does it and it's a slap. Not taking away from the amount of weight that came from that slap, but nonetheless, now it's important because a celebrity does it. Because this is unfortunately, this is the celebrity era where everybody is paying attention to celebrities and everybody is trying to become a celebrity and everybody is trying to become an influencer. So it's easier for people to say that and realize that, oh wow, this person that I watch all the time, or this person that my mommy and my daddy watched all the time did something wrong. Oh my God, this is violent. Even people that go watch action movies, right? Or better yet, let's take it down to the brass. Even people on the set of what is that movie that Alec Baldwin, Rust. Okay, selective violence and selective responsibility. Well, we didn't know the guns had actual rounds in it. Oh my God, this lady died. Oh my God, that's not my fault. Meanwhile, you always want to pay attention to portray something that you're not. And I find it sad that an actor who has starred in multiple action movies had no idea how to check one of the most simplest firearms out there, which is a basic ass revolver. It's not hard to figure out what has rounds in it and what doesn't. There's a difference in blanks, just like there's a difference in live rounds. And I even find it funnier that they were cutting corners. I meant to do a show on that, but I find it even funnier that they were cutting corners to try and save money because I think it was an independent production. But nonetheless, you were supposed to hire people of quality. Your armorer was not of quality, and that's why somebody died on the set. And somebody has to take the responsibility. Just like somebody has to take the responsibility in letting their children know that this has nothing to do with your actual life. You'll see these things on TV, but whenever it concerns you, these are things you have to do in order to avoid ending up having to deal with something like that, or in order to avoid making sure that you can get help if you need it, so on and so forth. Parents aren't really doing that, man. The parents leaving those comments are the ones that aren't really putting up that wall of protection around their kids.
Right.
Or at least intervention.
Right. And it's just a basic understanding that black people aren't as violent as portrayed. And it's a basic understanding that what you see on TV is not real, like you said. But just when you do have a conversation, black people, and I've had this on my other podcast, black people, we're not as violent as people make us out to be. We're totally the opposite. I mean, at least the black people I know, and I'm one of them. I mean, we're peaceful. We try to. We're not raised to hate. I just don't understand. Now, people, and I'm saying that that's not black people out there who don't like certain people and who are violent, but that's in every category. That's in every race. Every demographic have violent people. You can't say one group is more violent than the other.
Right.
And that's what the problem is, and that's how we're being portrayed by the world, is that we're more violent than everybody else, and that's what I don't like about it. And that's why I can see where you're saying with the slap, it's kind of validating it for some races of people who aren't exposed to black people a lot. It does validate that to them. Like, okay, well, that's what we thought, that's what we heard, and this is what we're seeing.
Right. And if anything, I mean, if this isn't a cry for us to take our narrative back, I don't know what is, because, there's ways we can do that. We need to own up to our own issues. We need to own up to the fact that we're not controlling our media. And we can no longer run away from our issues. Like a long time ago, when somebody might have been on the spectrum or something, the parents would say, oh, they just a little special, or they just a little slow. Versus all the scientific advancements that have been made over the years, and you got people taking their quote unquote slow special, other races taking their quote unquote slow special kids to go seek help, only to find out, okay, this is the actual problem. So what can we do to solve it? And here we are, finally starting to move towards owning up to our own issues and finding a solution to it. We got to stop being reactive and behind the ball, But in the case of Will Smith, what we can learn from that is owning up to our own issues. And another big thing we need to do is seek to uplift our brothers and not smite them down. Whenever it comes to black men, we already starting out with the head nod. Anytime you pass somebody by, that head nod, what's up?
It's funny because I do that.
Yeah.
I do that. It's so common now. Like, I acknowledge you, brother.
Yeah. And if anything, at this point, it should be a reminder to keep your head up, black man.
Yeah.
Because we don't build like we should. Because we can't build like we should. Because we as black men do not have the necessary resources. I mean, even if you look at the whole building black businesses thing, right? When it came to small business grants, they didn't say we're going to provide small business grants to all black people who are, own a business or whatever. They provided, the main company has provided business grants for black women-owned businesses. Which is weird. It's like, it's all black society. we all raised together, right? Like, nope, we're just gonna raise up the black women. So that already tells you how society is going to look at us as black men. It's like we're not worth investing in.
Right.
So if anything, we as black men need to start finding, if not start, we need to find the people who have either started, find a way to start, or make plans to start uplifting ourselves. And we all need a code. We all need to get on code. The code has always been there. I don't know if it's been followed to a T as of recent, because anytime you can see a black man smack another black man on TV, what message is that sending to our own black people? Right. So we need to get on code and realize that the only ones that's going to hold us up is ourselves. The shoestrings be damned, bootstraps be damned. There is no boot. We never had a boot. So that's number two. That's the other main thing I took away from that, because I'm really tired of seeing brothers with great extreme potential not getting to where they're at, and if anything, or not getting to where they need to be at. Because if anything, I love seeing our people get from point A to point B, and I'm always willing and able to help whenever possible. But I can't do that if we're not all on the same page, and you don't have the drive to do the same thing.
This the Black Powder Podcast, let's get it splitting. We got the wisdom hitting targets with a marked precision. We're having fun in the booth, we're running gun for the truth. Every future black gun owner was spreading the news. We do it legal, we're moving regal and blessing the people. From hopes for the culture, we keep it locked like guns in our holster. Holding it down as we're loading the rounds. If they were nervous back then they're gonna be scared of us now. Black Powder Podcast, we'll be back in a while.